Shalom, shalom. I want to give all praises, call Allah, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone well, and salutations to the hopeful elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing the truth and pushing the name of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai in truth and in sincerity. This is Ira from Great Millstone, Wisconsin, coming at you with another lesson. And the title of today's lesson will be, thy riches are cankered, going, drawing from, James, the fifth chapter. Cankered meaning a degradation, degradation of metals, which in this case meaning money, you know, and just land backing off of all of the financial upheaval that's been happening this week with the stock market and with the interest rates rising higher than ever. I felt compelled to do a lesson on it, but I've been seeing reports all week about looming recession. Like a looming recession is overhead. And I've been seeing a lot of these CEOs of these multi-billion-dollar tech and science-backed companies are either stepping down or they're either laying off thousands of their workforce. In preparation of a looming recession, because when companies lay off their workforce, they're trying to save money, trying to put money into might be trying to put money into a reserve account that they would have to pay those workers that they laid off, put those money into a reserve account so that way they can keep their company afloat, you know. And I've been seeing reports of IBM doing it, Tesla, Microsoft, Google, IBM, you know, Nvidia. So a lot of these companies are have a lot of insider information and are gearing up towards the recession or the slowdown of the economy. Now this is going to be the same thing that happened during the 2008 stock crash. When the housing bubbles crashed. When the interest rates went through the roof, and those stocks were shorted. You know, these things are going to happen again. Except I believe, through the spirit, that it's going to be worse this time. Because the dollar is deteriorating faster than it did in 2008. On top of that, you have other countries that are pushing towards the eradication of the dollar as well. You know, so the dollar isn't as strong as it was in 2008. I read something a couple of days ago, that said the dollar is a new quarter. It's a new 25-cent quarter. And that's the truth. When you look at the buying power of the dollar now today, it barely buys you something that would cost like a quarter in the early 2000s or in the 90s. Now that same thing that costs a quarter, you have to pay $1 for it. If that's any indication. But I'm gonna hop right into it. This is from Forbes.com, and this is from an article titled "What Happened During a Recession." Now I'm just gonna go straight to it. This is a recession definition. It says economists have varying opinions over how to define a recession. The National Bureau of Economic Research defines a recession as a significant decline that lasts for more than a few months and affects the broader economy, not just a particular sector. So this is a phenomenon, an event that's going to affect the whole economy of the whole country, not just the tech sector or the food sector, or the aerospace sector, or the video game sector, whatever you want to call it. That's part of whatever the country pulls together to create its gross domestic product. It says, in other words, almost every industry will experience its impact. Recessions are also defined as the period between a peak of economic activity and the economy's lowest point. They're usually relatively brief. Since World War II ended, the average recession has lasted 10 months. It says the NBER doesn't usually call an economic decline an actual recession until 6 to 18 months after recession's beginning. That means consumers could be experiencing its effects long before it becomes official. So basically, now this is doublespeak and this is witchcraft. They'll see a recession coming, and they won't declare the recession until 6 to almost 3 years down the line. That is the recession. So we could be so when you look at reports of Gerald Celente and these world-renowned economists saying that we've already been in a recession, that's not a lie. That is truth. The government won't declare it until 6 to 18 months down the line. Why? Because they want to figure out what to do about it, you know, whether they want to figure out if they want to stop the recession or if they want to keep it going, because these things are orchestrated, you know, and these things are pushed forward for an agenda by the elite, you know. So the public won't know it's a recession until the government wants you to know it's a recession, you know. But if you can see the signs and you can follow the money, you can tell that the economy is on a decline, you know, and things are coming to a screeching halt. It says, what happens during a recession? 5 indicators. It says personal income minus government transfers. When the economy is in a recession, incomes stagnate or drop due to employers slashing hours or reducing their workforce. You know, and that's through the spirit. That's what I said in the beginning of the video. You know, you have these Fortune 500 companies, these billion-dollar companies slashing their workforce, you know. So it says income inequality may also worsen as the wealthy are often less impacted by a recession than the middle or lower classes, right? Because the middle and lower classes still have jobs. You know, the middle lower classes still clock in, you know. So their wages are going to be affected. They're either going to stagnate, you know, meaning it's going to stay level. There aren't going to be any raises, or the wages are going to drop, you know, or you're going to get laid off altogether. It says employment. In a recession, the unemployment rate, the percentage of the total labor force that is unemployed but actively seeking work, tends to increase as companies cut back on staff to reduce their expenses. For example, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that unemployment reached a high of 14.7% in April 2020, the peak of the recession during the 19 pandemic. You know, it says industrial production and manufacturing. In response to the rising cost of raw materials, businesses usually cut back on production during a recession, you know, and that's going to drive prices of goods up, you know, because the goods are going to become more rare. It says, and manufacturing activity declines. This change can lead to a decrease in exports and overall decrease in economic activity. For example, manufacturing activity in the U.S. fell sharply during the Great Recession, you know, the Great Recession. The Great Recession is referring to 2008. It says, as businesses reduced production and laid off workers. During the particular recession, employment in manufacturing declined by 10%, and the manufacturing sector only began to recover in 2010, after the recession had officially ended. And you can see this particular example of a industrial production or manufacturing decrease in the movie called Company Men with Ben Affleck. It's a great movie. I recommend brothers go check it out. Probably catch it on Amazon Prime. It says, and then the last example is consumer spending. One aspect of consumer spending, retail sales, is the total amount of money consumers spend on goods and services. During a recession, retail sales generally decrease as people have less money to spend. As retail sales decline, the impact on the economy can be substantial. Businesses may have to lay off workers and reduce costs, and some businesses may close, which we've been seeing all the time since 2020. You know, we've been seeing this steadily as businesses are starting to close more and more. Chain businesses are starting to close more and more of their doors. You know, some businesses might close for good. For example, during the 19, you know, you had Toys R Us close its doors for good. During the 19, you also had different stores like Bed Bath and Beyond, you know, close its doors for good, you know. Now, a few more examples. It says how a reason may affect you. It says cost of living increases. When inflation contributes to a recession, you may find that household essentials like groceries, gasoline, clothes, and more are more expensive than they used to be. You know, by my example of the now this is where I got my example of the dollar, you know, from earlier. It says higher prices make it harder to make ends meet, so individuals often turn to strict budgets and cuts in discretionary spending. Number 2, job loss or reduction in hours. You know, so in a recession, companies often reduce their staffing levels to save money. Difficulty finding employment. You know, so all of these things happen during recession. Now you have to ask yourself, are all these things happening now? Of course they're happening now. And going back to this quote here, that we've been in recession for maybe 6 to 2 years, 6 months to 2 years, depending. So this has been happening for a while, man. And this is all a part of prophecy, Matter of fact, I think this is all a part of prophecy, man. This is what's been prophesied in the scriptures to happen, The economy is going to fall just like the economy in Rome fell, with another thing that happens during the recession is money gets printed more and more, or minted more and more out of thin air, which also pushes the value of the currency in circulation down, because there's more of it, The second Ezra chapter 9 verse 1, it says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. Now when you measure time is a sequence of chronological events, in other words, prophecy. And we can measure these things by reading the scriptures and going out in our everyday life and comparing what the scriptures say to what we see in the world. It says, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, so when you see these prophecies start happening, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. So these things are happening fast. So you're starting to see that the Lord is crunching down on the society, man. It says, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes, which, for an example, Japan just had a 7.7 earthquake yesterday, and uproars of the people in the world, which we are seeing all over the place, for different reasons. For an example, a very recent example, there was an uproar about the Olympic opening ceremony, man. About the demonic activity that the Olympic committee has shown openly to the world, man. There were protests, That's a small uprising, Now we can go through the spectrum of the 2010, 2011 Occupy Wall Street. We can go back to January 6th of 2020 with the storming of the Capitol. These things are starting to happen more frequently, versus in the early 2000s. In the 90s, these things, or even early 2000s after 9/11, these things didn't happen as much. And now these things are almost happening every month, So people are becoming more impatient and more irritable, It says, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. Isaiah 46:10 tells you, declaring the end from the beginning, So these things have been declared from the beginning of time, because the Lord has created a time spectrum and certain events to happen in order to bring in his order, which is the kingdom of heaven. It says, for like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, the end is manifest. So you're seeing the end being manifested or being shaped in your reality, man. That's what you're seeing. When you read Proverbs, it tells you better is the end of a thing than the beginning. And the end of this current society is upon us, man. And the beginning of the kingdom of heaven is right around the corner, man. Romans 13:11 tells you that our salvation is nearer than what we believe. So we're seeing these things, and these things should boost your faith. These things should push you to do more for the Lord as the end is approaching more faster and faster, man. Because going back into the currency, just like Rome, the American currency, even the currencies all over the world are being destroyed. This is James chapter 5 verse 1. It says, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl, for your miseries shall come upon you. Now, why are the miseries of the rich men going to come upon them? Because they're going to start to see that their money is being lost. Their money is being devalued. Think about it. What cares does a rich man have? The only care they have is losing their money. It says your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten. Now, when your riches are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten, meaning you have things that are eating away at your money, man. Eating away at your clothes. Your clothes are disintegrating. That barrier that they had their wealth is not there anymore. It says your gold and your silver is cankered. Now when you go into this word cankered here, this is from the G24. I'm sorry, G2728.
Strong's G2728. Katiao. Katiao.
Katiao, which means to rust over, cover with rust. It says in a derivative, to rust down, corrode. Now, when you look at iron, when iron rusteth over, what happens is it oxidizes. There's too much air getting to the rust, so it oxidizes. There's too much air getting to the iron, so it oxidizes and becomes rust. And that's a sign of something else called corrosion. Like you see here, it says an example, corrode, right? When you go into the word corrosion, it says corrosion can be defined as the degradation of a metal due to a reaction with its environment. So what you're seeing is the economy, which is the environment, right? Being devalued, and the money is being devalued because of the economy. Salaki, the money is being devalued because of the economy, which is, the state of the economy of the money being in circulation, too much money being in circulation. You have stock market crashing, you have insider trading, you have the currency bouncing back and forth between countries. You have countries being, on the brink of collapsing the dollar and using their own currency. So that's degrading the dollar even more. Now, but going into the degradation of metal, when you go into Daniel, the 2nd chapter, it tells you that the world shall be partly iron and partly clay. Now that clay, going back to Habakkuk 2, which is ibatyat, meaning thick debt, and that iron, which is the money, because most money or most currencies are made of trace minerals, gold and silver, bronze, are being corroded, meaning devalued. So let's go back to this James chapter 5. It says, verse 3, it says, your gold and your silver is cankered, meaning corroded, rusted, devalued, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. So this is the last time that the elites of this world are going to gather their riches together, man. Everyone wants to talk about the wealth gap and the gap in wealth, and it would take Elon Musk 600 years to go broke if he spent $1 million a day. Well, he won't get to spend that $1 million a day, man, because that gold and that silver is cankered. It's going to be devalued even faster than he can spend it. It says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you, kept back by fraud, crieth. Right. And how are the laborers kept back by fraud? They're kept back by fraud by being cheated out of their wages, not being paid adequately, the wages not keeping up with the cost of living, the cost of living outshining the wages, all of these things is fraudulent, to your labors, not to mention the heavier workloads for less pay, It says, and the cries of them which have and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth, So all of these cries that, people have because they're mourning in the society, the Lord hears all these cries, man. And for one, the Lord hears the cries of the elect who have been defrauded in this society, It says, you have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. Right. They've been wanton. They've been sitting back like fat cats, man. The elite of this world has been sitting back like fat cats, man, and made their hearts even fatter. But guess what, though? They just fattened themselves up for the Lord to take everything that they have from them, This ecclesia, and what that's going to cause is, what we're going to see is that nobody's going to see any future for this place. This is Ecclesiastes 12:1. It says, remember now thy creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. You know, so we're supposed to be, living for Yahweh Bashim Yahushai while we're young. You know, so that way we can grow old, or grow in, or live life in Yahushai. It says, while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Nor the clouds return after the rain. It says, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, which these are the elites of society, man, and they're trembling because why? Because they're watching this world fall apart, Now you have things that are orchestrated, like recessions and depressions and things of that nature, but these elite, they orchestrate these things so they can make more money off of these cataclysmic events, but the thing is that these things are happening without their planning, and these guys are losing sleep. It says, and the strong men shall bow themselves, so the military, the keepers of society, man, the military, the aldermen, the princes of this world, man, It says, and the grinders cease because they are few, going back to his article, man, meaning employment, the grinders cease, It says because they are few, the jobs, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, meaning that there is going to be no future in this place. Usually when you look out in the window, you can see what's in front of you, you're looking out in the horizon, or you're looking for something better. There's nothing that you're going to see when you look out of your windows, man. There's no future here, It says, and the door shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. So the door shall be shut in the streets, man. There's going to be no traffic in this place, man. Now in this article here in Forbes, we read that all traffic and all everything in the economy is going to slow to a halt or be degraded, I just want to take a look at this U.S. national debt clock one more time. This is from usdebtclock.org. Now, just looking at the U.S. national debt here on the top left, Now, as we've seen in the Forbes documentary, the Forbes document, the article that the government lies to you, So all of these numbers are deflated. These numbers are way higher than what they're reading right now, But right now, let's just, for humor's sake, U.S. national debt is $35 trillion, Now, let's go over to debt per citizen. Now, everyone knows that you have a part in the national debt as well, man. So if this is debt per citizen, right, and this is, let's say everyone was to go by this, right, that means the average person who has no debt on their credit report, no debt on their credit report, maybe high schoolers, whatever, right? Everyone owes $104,228. So that means when you come in this world, you're already $104,000 in debt, which makes obviously no sense, Now, when you go down here to U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio, which gross domestic product, right? In 1960, it was 52%, 1980, 20 years later, it went down to 34%, right? Now you get to 2000, it went up to 56.71%. Now fast forward that another 24 years, 122%, So this is the debt ratio now, per what the money America is making, So the amount of debt that America has over the money that is generating is 122% above what it's making. That means this place is going to be in debt for a very long time, and it's going to implode. That's what happens when a corporation goes bankrupt. If you brothers ever watch the documentary Corporation Nation, that's a good documentary. I don't know if you can even find it now, but that's a great documentary, and it shows you how this country is a corporation, and it's going to implode just like any corporation. So this is the last scripture here. This is 2 Ezra 15. And 15, it says, because this is what's going to happen. What you're going to see start to happen as, the economy slows and no one starts to make any money. You're going to have people start resorting to crime and eluding each other. This is 2 Ezra 15 and 14. And this is very real because this is what other countries are going through, around the world. Just look at Afghanistan. All these countries have been destabilized and have imploded on themselves. Venezuela is one of them. I watched a video the other day that, they're burning their money in trash cans to keep warm. People are making clothes and wallets out of the paper money. And that's what's coming to America very soon. Coming to Babylon the Great. This is 2 Ezra chapter 15, verse 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hand." So it says, "For there shall be sedition among men." And that's what this is describing, man. Civil uprisings. It says, "and invading one another." Meaning they're going to be breaking into each other's houses and businesses and all types of crazy things, man, that we see in these movies and we see on the news in other countries. So they shall not regard their kings nor princes. So the presidents, their police officers, their aldermen, people of authority, they're not going to regard these people there or their rules. And the course of their action shall stand in their power. It's going to be complete lawlessness, anarchy. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, right? Because these cities are going to be annexed and quarantined off, man. Not only are they going to be fighting each other for lack of food and lack of goods and lack of money, but you got to think about this too. When there's no money, there's no power. When there's no power, hospitals can't run, can't survive. So guess what? People are going to be breaking out of hospitals, getting sick, spreading diseases, So these cities are going to be quarantined as well, as well as annexed for the deliberate sedition, It says, "For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled." Right? Because this place didn't give a damn about the Most High and following the Most High's laws, and conducting themselves in a holy, righteous manner. So the houses shall be destroyed and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So this is the reason why all these things are going to happen, man. Spoil their goods because of lack of bread, and great tribulation. Because when you have no money, you have no food, you have no power or any way to sustain a healthy lifestyle, you're going to resort to doing the lowest of activities, man. Crime, and that's all you're going to see all over the place, man. You seen it in that movie Civil War. And that was very light. It was a very light showing of what could happen or what will happen. It's going to get way worse than that. So with that, that was the last scripture. I'm going to end it here. Hopefully, Lord willing, through the power and spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, you were edified. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Hakwadash, to be honest, the apostles and the elders of the great millstone who were well, and salutations to the hopeful elect on the four corners of the earth, pushing the word and pushing the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai in truth and sincerity. Shalom.